I'm Holly, and this is Wild Blessings Teaching Tuesday. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is going to be a really interesting class. We're going to be seeing spring and also seeing the moon. I'm really excited to share this topic because it's so fascinating to me. Get into the creation's flow, then you're going to actually go with the flow rather than go against it. And I'm such a rebel that I'm just finally getting that idea, but it just makes so much difference. It's like, why would you build a sandcastle, a beautiful sandcastle on the beach right as the tide is coming in? That just doesn't make any sense. So the rhythms of yearly rhythms are the winter pause. And thank God for winter, because if it was always spring or summer or fall, I would always be working. And so winter is just a time we talked about. It's a time of rest, a time of regrouping, a time of planning, a time of thinking, a time of enjoying what you had preserved from previous seasons. And so God also created that in the month. And so there's seasons within seasons. So when each month, there's the fourth quarter, which starts today, May the 4th. And during that fourth quarter, we're going to learn about what you do and what you don't do. But the moon has an amazing impact upon the earth. And so it's called month because it comes from the word moon. And luna means bright or to shine. But the moon doesn't have any light of its own. It's just a cold, dark stone. It gets and reflects the light from the sun. And the gravitational pull of the moon on the earth as it revolves around the earth it's fascinating how it can impact not just the water and the tides, but the water within us and the water within the soil of the earth. And so it makes a real big difference. The Farmer's Almanac, old timers have lived by the moon for years. And you wonder, how on earth did people ever tell time before they had a clock or an alarm clock? How did they get up? Or before we had cell phones, for heaven's sakes. Now I just say, Siri, set the timer for 15 minutes. But they used the sun and the moon. And so here's another really cool scripture that I love about that. He assigned the moon to mark the months and the sun to mark the days. So that is just so cool. Oh, and listen to this one. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let there be signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to light upon the earth. And it was so. And then he assigns the moon to mark the months and the sun to mark the days. So anyway, before clocks and stuff, people could tell time. First of all, their alarm were the roosters and the birds singing or the sun rising. And so that was a way to wake up. They would just get into the rhythm of the day and do most of their hard work in the early morning when it wasn't so hot. So that makes a lot of sense as well. And also they would tell time by where the sun was in the sky and by the lengthening shadows or the shortening shadows as it gets towards noon. And then as the moon came out, every single quarter of the moon comes out at a different time of the evening. And so it's absolutely fascinating how people could actually tell time by the moon and the sun. And of course they could direct their journeys with the stars and the constellations. So they were way more in tune with creation than we are at this stage of our evolution, or devolution, I guess. The moon is a giant calendar in the sky. I just wanted to share a quick story about, we used to have my grandfather started a boys camp up in northern Minnesota, and for some reason the moon is the same moon, but it would always seem so much more magical and enormous over the lake, and that's called a moon glade. And the way it glances or shimmers over the lake and kind of coming to a point towards you it's called a moon glade, and I never knew that. But my grandmother used to just love standing out on her dock and looking at the moon, and she'd always say, oh, the moon, and it would, with the huge pine trees around, and it was just beautiful. So you all have your own moon stories, and you should comment and tell me a little bit about what the moon has meant to you as well. The moon has a significant impact on the earth. Its very existence makes the life on earth inhabitable. The moon is a fourth of the size of the earth, It is 238,900 miles away from the Earth. It's drifting away from the Earth at 3.8 centimeters every year, so its pull is getting a little less each year. It orbits the Earth every 28 days, and the gravitational pull of the moon on the Earth impacts the rise and fall of ocean tides and the moisture content of the soil. And we will see what difference that makes for gardening especially, but even as a wild woman and foraging, there's things that I'm going to only do in the first quarter or the second quarter or the third quarter or the fourth quarter. So we'll go over to my slideshow and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so wild blessings. If you haven't done this yet, get my free guide to eating my favorite wild edible plants. There's thousands more, but these are my favorites. So just give me your your contact info and then I can let you know whatever it is I'm up to. Okay, so this is what it looks like from leaves to roots. Everything has to do with energies, nature's wave. And so every week I take you through things that are available on nature's grocery store shelves now. And so being in the spring, most of the energy is now transferred to the young leaves and shoots and even into some of the flowers. This is my bucket list for sure. Can you tell what time of day it is by the shadows on the ground? Or what time of the month it is by the phase of the moon? Having that kind of ability is just something I really want to regain. And we already read that scripture. Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for the signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. God assigned the moon to mark the months and the sun to mark the days. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, hot and cold, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And then our scripture memory verse for this week is, there is a time for every purpose under heaven. So it's not a matter of working harder, it's about working smarter. So here's the moon cycles, but you can see that we're on May the 4th. And so we're just starting the fourth quarter of the moon. Here's the first quarter. So at the new moon, the lunar or the moon gravity pulls water up and it causes the seeds to swell and burst. This factor, coupled with the increasing moonlight, creates balanced root and leaf growth. This is a good time for growth and germination. And so what you want to do is you want to plant above ground. The first quarter is the best time for planting above ground bearing annual crops that produce their seeds outside the fruit. So lettuce and spinach and celery and broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, grain crops, anything that produces its seed outside of the fruit, or just think about growing large. So the moon is actually waxing at this point. It's starting from a little tiny crescent moon and getting larger and larger and larger. And as it does, more and more light is coming and increasing and balances the root and leaf growth. So that's the first quarter of the moon. So anything you want to increase to grow. So for example, this is a great time to plant grass. So you would never plant grass in the fourth quarter of the moon, and we'll talk about that when we get there. This is also a good time to cut your hair if you want it to grow longer, because anything that you want to grow or to increase growing, like if you prune something now, you will cause it to grow faster. So frankly, I don't like mowing my grass very often, so there's no reason why I would mow it now. I would wait till the fourth quarter. So think about new life, new growth, and the moon getting larger and larger, looking like it is anyway because of the sun. The second quarter is the gravitational pull is less, but the moonlight is strong, creating healthy leaf growth. It's generally a good time for planting, especially 2 days before the full moon. The type of crops that prefer the second quarter are annuals that produce above ground, but their seeds form inside of the fruit. So the first one, in the first quarter, the seeds are outside the fruit. Second quarter is for 7 days, and you would plant things like beans and melons and tomatoes. So then the third quarter is now you've got the full moon. And the third and fourth quarters are after the full moon, when the light is waning or decreasing. So for the first 2 weeks, it was waxing, and now the light is going to start waning or decreasing, and the energy is drawing down. So that's when you think of what's below the surface of the earth, like the root crops. So the gravitational pull is high, creating more moisture in the soil, but the moonlight is decreasing, putting energy into the roots. And this is the favorable time for planting for root crops like beets and carrots. It's also a good time for perennials and for bulbs and for transplanting anything that has, any transplanting in the third quarter is a great time to do it. So like this last weekend, I helped a friend dig up a whole bunch of her plants because she was moving, and it was a great time to do it. Hopefully she got them in the ground before today, because today starts the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, there is a decreased gravitational pull and moonlight, and this is considered a resting period. This is also the best time to cultivate, harvest, fertilize, and prune, not transplant. I'm sorry, I wrote that. But so you would mow your lawn in the third and fourth quarter to retard growth, especially the fourth quarter. So imagine if you had to mow this lawn and how much work it would be. Why not do it in the fourth quarter so that it will stay nice and mowed a lot longer and not need growth? But if you wait and do it in the first quarter, it will grow so much faster that you'll have to end up mowing before you know it again. So that's just makes such a huge difference. Same thing with cutting your hair. If you want to have short hair, like Bonnie has short hair, if she wants to keep her cute hairstyle, then she would have it only cut in the fourth quarter so that it would retard the growth. If she cuts it in the first quarter, she'll be back in the beauty shop within a couple of weeks. Our moon has a significant impact on the earth. The rise and fall of the tides on the earth is caused by the moon's gravitational pull. The moon is 238,900 miles from the earth, and it takes 27.32 days to complete its orbit around the earth. The moon is drifting away from us at approximately 3.8 centimeters every year. The moon has no light of its own. It only reflects it from the sun, and even a bit from the sun reflecting light back to the moon. Although a full moon may seem bright, it is actually reflecting only 7% of the sun's rays. The old-time gardeners say, with the waxing of the moon, the earth exhales. When the sap in the plants rise, the force first goes into the growth above ground. Thus, you should do all activities with plants that bear fruit above ground during a waxing moon in the first 2 quarters. With the waning of the moon, the earth inhales. Then the sap primarily goes down toward the roots. Thus, the waning moon is a good time for pruning, fertilizing, watering, harvesting, and controlling parasites and weeds. Okay, so now that was not a thorough thing on the moon at all, but I will definitely write a blog on it and give you some links to people who totally know what they're talking about. I know I've just lived with this for so long that I really believe in it. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you think of him, and the son of man that you are concerned about him? I love that verse. And when I look at the moon, I think of this verse and how God is like our sun. He illuminates us and shines on us, and we just reflect his light. We're the moon. So follow me as I forage through nature's wave on YouTube at Wild Blessings YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me and foraging with me through this past week and eating with me through this past week. We have been given so much for free, and we are richly blessed by the one who made us and loves us. And so in this study of the moon has even made me realize how much more I want to live intentionally. And it takes effort to live intentionally, but if you can go with the flow, you're not working against the energies of creation, you're working with it, and that is just awesome. It's powerful. Challenge you to memorize Ecclesiastes 3:11, which says, there is a time for every purpose and activity under heaven. And so that would be a really good verse to memorize, because it's not about wisdom, it's about knowing when's a good time to do something. And so go with that flow. And if you've been a night owl, then when we talk about the sun and how that can reset your circadian rhythms, you'll see why it's important to go to bed at night and get up during the day. And the light bulb has changed all of that. So we have to be very intentional to get our health back. And so following these rules of nature and God, that nature's God put into place, will give us our optimal health and give us a happier life. So eat wild every day. That'll be our contest. We're just continuing that this week. If you want to write a moon poem, go for it. I collected a bunch of moon poems to share with you, which I'll do on our Wild Blessing Facebook page. If you're not a member of that, just ask me and I'll be happy to invite you to join. It's a private Facebook group. And okay, there's 3 ways you can support me. One is through Patreon, and that will help me to financially keep up giving these free classes. And the other is to share this with your friends and family, and especially people who are homeschooling or have children who are always on their phones or whatever, and you want to see them live a healthier life and get them addicted. I call it lighting wildfires. And then another way is just participating with me. It's just so much fun to read your poems, to see what you're cooking, to hear your adventures, to hear you guys commenting on each other's posts. I really love that. I love you all, and I'm having so much fun with it. Thank you for joining me. I hope this was an encouragement. I hope that when you look at the moon and you reflect on the one who made the moon and the one who made you, that you feel loved. Wild blessings to you.